I want to ask you guys this while we're, wondering what they're going to do. Do you guys think, not because this is not me suggesting Joel has been out of shape or that he's not been in like optimal condition or anything like that. Do you think the training staff, strength and conditioning, etc., need to take a long look at, do I have to reimagine what my body looks like to hold up over 82 games plus the playoffs? Because somebody brought, I think it was, I want to say it was Matthew Tynan, who covers, longtime Spurs reporter, brought this up the other day that, Tim Duncan was dealing with not the same level of consistent injuries that Joel did, but had dealt with some knee problems in his, I would say, late 20s, early 30s. And he lost a bunch of weight. And on top of that, got that platelet-rich therapy on his knee. And that was able to extend his career, his effectiveness of his career deep into his 30s. Obviously was not the guy anymore on their final, title teams, but was still an, if not elite, at least sub-elite defensive player, still a valuable offensive guy. And I look at Joel and I see how his game has evolved. And we sit here and we say, look, the most important or the most dominant part of his game is the free throw drawing, and it's the face-up jumper, the pick and roll to the free throw line, the elbow J. And if his game has now become less about, now look, he still posts up a ton, throwing his weight around absolutely helps. And we can only ask him to lose so much weight, right? Like that's just, you can only get to a certain level based on, your genetics. But if he could play lighter, I think that is the move for the rest of his career. And I think it will sync up with how his game has evolved. Like we're not talking about a pure low post player, which is a lot of what we saw for the early stages of his career. And I think if you just, I don't know, I'm grasping at straws here to try to look for what can be done over the long term to help this. Because, like, look, clearly the guy's carrying a lot of weight. He's 7 feet tall, and all these injuries, save for the facial stuff, and he had the thumb hand injury in the Toronto series. They're all lower body injuries. So whatever you can do to put less stress on your joints and your lower body is at a premium to me.
So, like, first of all, I think losing weight wouldn't be a bad thing. I mean, that's hell of an analysis there. Especially as these lower body injuries take a toll. I'm not sure if it would have necessarily prevented this one, right? Because he either got this injury when he bumped knees with Randall, bumped knees with Siakam, or when Kuminga landed on him. Those three don't necessarily have a lot to do with how much weight you're carrying. And when you go, but if you go back to when he injured the knee back in 2017, right? We all assume it was when who did he have that dunk against, the Rockets? That he had that dunk, came down, landed awkward. Something like that where he's landing with more weight. Yeah, maybe it would help to land with 30 less pounds, 20 less pounds, whatever number you want to come at. And certainly when you talk about the accumulation of these injuries making him more susceptible to further injuries down the line, I think carrying less weight would help with that. I'm just not sure like what we've been dealing with in recent years, which, like you mentioned, the 2 eye sockets, the thumb caught in a jersey, bumping knees this year. They're just kind of freak random shit that maybe it's, I don't know. So
yeah, but when you
just get really fucking unlucky for 8 years straight, and apparently 100%. That's where we're at.
Yeah, but when you also just look at the totality of it, though, and you talk about those lower body injuries, okay, you can't control any of them, especially the face, the hand, things of that nature. But when you're talking about, all right, this thing keeps happening to me, what can I prevent? It's not just falling on the floor
or try to prevent. It's not because like, look, we could sit here and say this would be best for him, and you still, to Derek's point, you could still get hurt. You might have a freak accident. You might have this. It's more about like what is the way you can best try.
Yeah.
I mean, so like jumping into the stands, right? The things that we're like, all right, hey, we want to see you hustle, but be a little smarter here. And you hear that the doctors told him.
Well, that ship has sailed.
Right. Just as an example, these are the things the doctor says fall on the floor a little so you can avoid hitting the floor a certain way where you're not putting any stress on your lower body, things like that. But when it comes to banging knees, there's nothing you can do about it. So the point, Derek, that I was trying to say was, all right, what can I do now that doesn't revolve around me worrying about falling on the floor a certain way and not diving for a loose ball? Instead, what can I do with my body now to make sure that, hey, at least I know I'm doing this? So when Kyle, I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. They brought the exact example up where Tim Duncan did exactly that. Kobe Bryant, the issue that he had to go over. Where did he go? To Germany for the platelet stuff that he was doing.
So did Andrew Bynum.
And well, fair point. But I think Joel Embiid wants to play a little bit more. So what can I do though? What can I do? And that's not to say that Joel Embiid hasn't, but he has come back, and he has come back to camp where he's bigger, and he loses the weight during the training camp session and preseason, and then gets to a certain weight during the regular season, and then some of the weight comes back on and all of that. So I don't think it's unfair to ask, hey, with the style of play that he has, he's still bigger than most people, and he's already more skilled than most people, where that stuff is still going to be effective if he loses the 20 pounds. It's just a matter of carrying a little bit less weight. We may not have the answer, but will that help him in the long run?
Yeah, look, like I said earlier, I'm not against losing weight. Neither myself or for pretty much almost anyone. Not almost anyone, because a lot of the NBA players we cover are really, really skinny. Anyway, getting off track here. Certainly for myself, certainly for big men, not against losing weight. All I don't want to do is say that he is injured because he is overweight, because I don't think that's necessarily true or fair. When you talk about mitigating injury risk, you talk about moving percentages around. You don't talk about guarantees. It's a lot like building a team or building a playoff contender. Nothing he can do is going to guarantee health, especially when there's been so many freak accidents. You're just going to shift the percentages a couple either way. And that's kind of the shitty part of where we're at.
We all silly like the mayor.